Okay, this is like take 5. I'm annoyed. But here is an overview of microeconomics. So first we have the market price for a product. As you can see from the graph, the y-axis is the price and the x-axis is the quantity. And we have two colored lines, one called the demand curve and one called the supply curve. Now normally there's only two lines on this graph, the supply and the demand. The law of supply states that as price increase, more quantity is provided, while the law of demand says the more of price, less quantity is demanded. There can be shifts of the supply curve, which include the input costs, technology, expectations, and number of sellers. What shifts the demand curve are tastes, expectations, number of buyers, income, and related goods, such as substitutes and complementaries. The difference between curves is the elasticity of the curve, which is the rise over run in percentage. Or in other words, the change in percentage of the price over the change of percentage in quantity. Let's analyze the supply curve more closely. For a single firm to produce products, there's obviously a cost. The marginal cost is just the total cost divided by the total quantity produced. The yellow line is created by the market price, which is also revenue. You can see the marginal cost being a curve rather than a line, because as you produce more quantity, there are diminishing returns. You can also notice that the marginal cost isn't starting at 0, because there are fixed costs, costs that are always there even when you produce nothing, such as rent for the building. Variable costs increase as you produce more quantity. Fixed costs plus variable costs equals accounting costs, which are the explicit costs of producing the product. The economic cost is the opportunity cost of producing that good. The two graphs that you observed are mostly part of the perfectly competitive markets, such as gas stations, where there's a high number of sellers and buyers, and the product is identical between two gas stations. However, on the graphs below, show a more monopolistic in oligopolies, where there are market failures. The reason why for market failures are plentiful. They could derive from input costs being the lowest due to possession of the input resource, or creative destruction, where they have the optimal technology, or just having a lot of capital in general. There could also be a market failure due to the uniqueness of the product, like no other product in the market. Because the firm or firms have the more optimal production, the opportunity cost or economic cost for other firms become negative, resulting in more firms exiting, but also increasing the firm's power over the market price. As you can see from the shift from the dotted blue line to the solid blue line, there is a noticeable reduction in the supply curve. To combat market failures, the government, institutions, or organizations intervene. There are many ways to approach this issue. The government can institute a price floor or price ceiling. They can also levy taxes onto the demand or supply curve, but it affects both groups equally. The top yellow line is the price floor, while the bottom floor is called the price ceiling, ironically. However, in government, there's also corruption, such as pork barreling, log rolling, and rent seeking. Pork barrel politics is when politicians mostly fund projects that support their own political party. Log rolling is when two groups of people mutually agree to vote in laws that help their respected party. Rent seeking is when an individual or entity seeks to increase their own wealth without creating any benefit for society. Last topic of interest is the different types of goods throughout the market. Exclusivity in definition refers to the barrier to obtain that good. An example of it is, do I have to pay money to get this product? Rivalry is when you take a product and the taking of the good results in there being less goods for other people. To start on the low end of exclusivity and the low end of rivalry is public goods. Things like fire stations, police stations, government tanks, and radio stations all are public goods that we don't have to pay for, and we do not have fierce competition for these goods. The low exclusivity but high rivalry is collective goods, such as chopping down trees and fishing in a pond, because fishes are highly limited. Things that have a high exclusivity but low rivalry are common goods. Electricity, cable television, and water are things that you still pay for in utilities, but when you consume them, there is not a reduction in availability of the good. And private goods are things like t-shirts, pizza, literally anything you buy in stores.